Hello, my name is Josh and today we're going to create a autumn park environment. This is going to be a very small environment, so this tutorial shouldn't be too long. I hope you learn a lot in this tutorial. Let's get started. Now, I'm going to be using an autumn nature pack supplied by Michael O. You can purchase his asset in the asset store in the link below. Okay, to start with, we're going to create a terrain by going up to the high key, create, and click terrain. Now this will create a default 2000 by 2000 terrain. Now for what we want to make, that is too large for us, so we're going to go to the terrain settings. We're going to change the terrain width and length to 500 by 500. Remember to click enter. Now what we want to make is a base texture for our terrain. So we're going to go to the paint tool, edit textures, add texture. Now we want to select the 2D texture, which brings up this window here when you click select. Now you want to type in ground. Now these will bring up the ground textures within this pack. Now we're going to select ground 8 for our default texture. Now that's our default texture for now, but we might change it later on in this tutorial. Now if you open up in the project folder, open up autumn and go to add-ons, this will bring up all of the prefabs within the pack. Now since we're going to create a park, there is a prefab in here which is called Park 1. Now drag and drop that into around about the center of the terrain. Now this is our base path for our terrain, so we're going to be working around this area. Okay, now to start with, we want to find how much of this area on the terrain we want to use for the main level and how much we want to use for the outer area. Now remember, the outer area is also important in the level. So we're going to use some brick walls which are found near the bottom called wool, and we're going to use the wool old. Now if you drag and drop it in and press F, you can zoom in on the object like so. As you can see, these assets are very detailed. Okay, now we don't want the wall to be facing that way, so if we go to the y-axis and type 90, that will rotate it 90 degrees, and that's the direction we want it at. Now the hotkeys are Q for the camera movement. Also you can use the right mouse button to move the camera around, and you can use the arrow keys to move the camera around also. W brings up the axis movement, which is X, Y, and Z. E, the rotation. And R, the scalar. Now a very important key to use is Control Z. If you make a little mistake and you don't want to do it all again, try Control Z and it'll bring you back to where you were. Okay, so now we're going to create a level wall area. This will be the area that the player is limited to go around. You know, actually we're going to change to this wall as it's a lot higher. Another great shortcut is Control D. That duplicates the object which is selected. This is a lot easier than going back into the project folder and dragging in the same asset again. Okay, so we have a little wall here. Now what we could do, we could group these two assets by, if we create an empty game object and call this wall. Now grouping these will save us time in creating our area. We put these into wool. Ooh, my bad, I put in the wrong wall. Now using that, we can just click Control D and drag it across. Now as you see, it's a lot quicker than drag and dropping in from the project folder. So create like mini prefabs within your project, which will make your life a lot easier to move stuff around, duplicate stuff, and organize stuff. And now we could just select all those and duplicate them, and then it will create a longer wall, and we can get the job done a lot quicker. Now taking into account this is our barrier for the player, so the player cannot go beyond this, and beyond this wall will be the outer area, which is known as a far terrain or far land. Now we can just keep duplicating this until we get the right amount of length we want for our wall. Okay, a little bit longer. Okay, that looks long enough now. Now we're going to finish the rest on this side. But now we're going to bring this wall closer to our park here. Just so we can get this path lined up with another asset later, which will bring out the level's potential. Now, the asset we're going to use is Gate 1. Now remember to rotate this at 90 degrees so we get it to the right angle we want. And now we're going to put it right there. And remember, you want to kind of even it out on both sides. So something like that. And now we want to move this wall a little bit away from that. Like so. Now we can finish the wall on the other side. By duplicating with Control D. Okay. That looks good. And now we can simply duplicate this, rotate it to 90 degrees, and then we can finish up on this side. Now remember to get it centered as much as you can. I do apologise, I do have a little bit of a cough, so if I do cough during this video, then I do apologise. As you can see, the length of this is a lot longer than the width. Oh, yeah. Like that. And now, since there's not much left, we're going to cut down our duplication to about 4 walls. Okay, we're going to cut that last wall there out. Now we're going to get the gate again. Rotate. Actually, no. We could just duplicate this one as this path is lined up, so we won't have to line up, and the gates will be aligned, which is very important. We always want to make sure that the assets within the level are lined up to the other assets used. Okay, now since we got that there, we're going to have to bring this wall out a little bit more. So maybe shouldn't have deleted that wall, or maybe we're going to need 2 more walls. Nope, we're going to need a few more. We'll go 1 more wall, and that should be fine. Okay. Now we're going to do a little shortcut and get that entire wall and get that wall. Select those, because now if I duplicate that, it would duplicate those in the same wall, and that's not what we want. We want to duplicate the walls as the game object we created earlier. Sometimes this could take time, but you don't want to rush into a level, because if you rush it, it might not look as appealing as you want it to. Now, depending on what type of game you want to make, this is just a rough out level just for a player to walk around and enjoy the beauty of the level. Okay, we've selected all that, so now we do is just Control D and drag it across. Now we want to get it lined up. Now, the more objects you have selected and you're trying to move it, it moves it a lot quicker, so this can be very tricky to do. You can hold Control and click, and it will keep all those selected and move the others at the same time. Okay, now we move it across slowly. Perfect. Okay, now we want to fill this gap in here because we're not going to need it. Now, as you can see, that is considerably smaller than these common walls that we're using right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to drag these in because we don't want to disrupt our already made game objects. We're going to place that there. We're going to grab wall 2, rotate it at 90. And now we're going to press R on the keyboard, which will bring up the scaler. And now we just drag that in to tighten it up. Place it there. Drag it across, make sure it's kind of evened out. And there we go. Now we have is this side to complete. So we're going to highlight all these walls here, and then we're going to select the walls that are opened up in the hierarchy. Okay, that's good. I'm going to Control D that and drag it across. good. Okay, there we go. We now have our perimeter for our level. Now, as you can see, this is open here, so there's like a little bit environment here, but you can always put a mesh collision there, like a cube, to stop the player from going out, depending whether you're using nev mesh or collision for your level. I'll show you how to do it both with collision and with nev mesh later in this tutorial. Okay, now since we have our very rough basic out, we're going to start placing a few basic objects in. First off, we're going to start with the fountain, which is fountain 1. We're going to place that there. Try and center it. There we go. So we're going to get a park fence, and this is going to go in the center here. Now in this area is probably going to be some vegetation, like grass, trees. Nothing too crazy. We don't want to overdo the level. We can also put this park fence in here simply by using the R tool and use the white part of the scaler, and that will scale all 3 of the axes at once, like that. And now we can gotta get the right scale. Okay, that looks good enough. As you see, this fountain which I use, which is fountain 1, is animated, as I will demonstrate. You click the play button, you'll see it animates nicely, giving it a nice, really realistic effect, which will work well with our level. Okay, next we want to put down some other objects down. So for starters, we're going to use a park bench, which is somewhere in here. There it is, a bench. So we can just drag it on. We're going to rotate this at 90 and put it right on the edge of the curve. Now you don't want to put it in the curve, because if you put it in the curve, you'll get that, and you don't want that. You want it just on the edge of the curve. And we can place a few of these benches around. So we've got one there. If you press Ctrl D, we can put another there. It should be at 180. Remember, press F to focus on a object. These hotkeys may take some time to get used to, but they are very handy, especially the Q, W, E and R. They will save you a lot of time. Okay, duplicate that. And now since that, instead of putting 360, you could just type 180 in again, as it was on -180, which will then set it back to 0. Ooh. I do apologise for that. I am currently working on a TV, and it sometimes does that, which can be very annoying at times. I'm going to duplicate that bench. Now put on for this level around about 8 to 10 benches, but spread them out, and try and spread them out evenly, so they're not placed randomly. And don't keep them all at the same rotation, rotate them differently. Okay, we've got some there, we've got some there. We're going to put one up here. -90. don't be afraid to put two benches next to each other. I know I did say about spreading them out, but you could also put two of the same objects together. They still work very well. Okay, now we have some benches out. Oh, need one round here. Okay, nice. Okay, now we have some benches. We're going to put down some trash cans. Now try and put the trash cans next to the benches. Because if you walk around a park these days, you will see a trash can near a bench. Now these, it doesn't matter about rotating. It's the benches that are more important because they're more noticeable. As you see, there's two benches here, so you would think put two trash cans down, but don't put two trash cans down, just put one. Okay, we have almost put every trash can next to every bench. Got, I think, about 3 more. Now I am just randomly putting them on which side. You can put them all on the same side if you want, but I'm just randomly putting them on each side. Just to give it a bit more creativity. Okay, now we have benches, trash cans. We got a little park fence around these two ovals here. And now you would think, what should we do next? Should we work on vegetation, or should we work on the outer area? No, you want to work on the inner area first before you work on the outer area. And why? Because if you put all your detail in the inner area, then you could put, you have to decide how much detail to put on the outer area. If you focus on the outer area and put all the detail in there, you won't be able to put much detail into the area which the player will be roaming in. Okay. So first, next thing, we're going to put some more colours in. As you see, that one colour is very bland. We're going to go to the paint tool in the terrain, edit texture, add texture. And we're going to type ground. And as you see, we've got some ground textures here. Now we want to put a texture in here. So a good texture for that could be let's try 9. Click on it. Do a little paint. As you see, that textures are very, very wide. So we can double click this and we can change the texture size. So if we put this to 7, it smoothens the texture. Now if you don't like that texture and you don't want to repaint it, you can always just double click it, select a new texture, and it will keep it where you painted it before. So you could just go through and find out which one's best. Oh, that one is nice. We'll go for that one. Now we're going to paint around here. As you can see, I have my target strength at 1 but my opacity at 50. The higher the opacity, the quicker it paints on, and no, sorry, got that wrong way around. The higher the opacity is, the more thicker the colour is on the terrain. As if I put 100 to 50, it's a darker colour, which I don't like. I like my colour to be mixed in with the undercolour, or the base texture, which is that texture right there. The first texture we put on. Okay, now we're going to put the brush to 1, and we're going to create some like small paths across, so we went around the outer area. We're going to create some small paths, like connecting to each other, and then we can fill in those textures with another texture. Say if we want for ground 1, I'm about to change this to 7 to compress it and make it look a lot better. And you can just paint. Now you could do this with a bigger brush, say like 30, but if you use a smaller brush you can really apply detail in. Now you're probably thinking, why didn't I do this texture first? I could have just painted around all this middle area here and then done that texture afterwards. Well, I want that texture to be kind of blended in with this texture. So that texture there is acting as a default layer texture for this texture also. Okay, there we go. As you can see, now we've finished painting that, you can see that the colour doesn't really match, so we can edit this and we can change it to a colour that more suits us. So we could go for that colour, and as you can see it's bigger, so we're going to make this smaller like that, and there we go. It's a lot more detail now within this area, and we only use 2 textures. Now you can now go a few little paints around here to create a bit more texture in there. Okay, now we've got to go around the outside of all of this. So we're going to go back to brush size of 3, and we're just going to go all the way around this area. Now don't go too far in or out, as we're going to use more textures and vegetation will be used on the textures. Now don't keep it in a straight line, kind of mix it up, go in, go out, go in, because if you keep it a straight line it doesn't look so realistic. You can tell that it's been painted in a straight line, and textures don't normally come in straight lines. Okay, we got that. We're going to finish around here. Now that will do, we'll finish the rest later, because now we can start putting a bit of veg down. So to start off, we're going to add some grass. So we go to the grass tool here, or the paint detail tool, edit detail, and we're going to add a grass texture. Type grass, and you can see we've got some nice grass textures here. We're going to go with grass 1 to start with. If we don't like it, we can change it. As you see, the default colour is healthy green and dry colour. We don't want that. We want some dry colours. Close that. Click add. Now make sure that the texture is on billboard, as this is not a 3-dimension texture. If the billboard isn't on, it will look very, very odd. And if you don't believe me, then you are more than welcome to give it a try. Okay, now we're gonna see that's too much right there. So we're gonna adjust our opacity and target strength settings. We're gonna change the opacity to 1.45 and target strength to 1.25. With 0.125, sorry. And now if you paint it on, you can see it's not all one big blob. Now this is going to go on this texture. Oh, I'm going to have to bring it down some more, so remove all that. You can hold the control button and go over the top of the grass texture to get rid of it. Now if you hold control, it only gets rid of the texture that's selected. If you hold shift, it gets rid of all of the textures that are related to the paint detail. So we're going to bring this down to 1, brings to 0.06. Now we're going to paint now. Oh, I have to bring that up. There we go. Now try not to get it on the path. If it does go on the path, then just remove it and replace it again. Okay, now you're thinking that looks quite boring. The thing is that this grass is quite tall, so we're going to take the grass height down. We're going to take it down to 1. We're going to change this to 0.8. And just change the width to 1. Actually, keep it at 2. Be fine. And click apply. Okay, so we have like some little grass there. Now we're going to put some more textures down in these areas. We're going to click add texture, type ground, and now we're going to select a nice ground texture. We want a leafy one, so we're going to go for 7. And we're changing the size of the texture. Oh, we've already used that texture. So we'll go for ground 6. And we're going to change this to 1. And we're just going to paint paths. And then we're going to add another texture. And we're going to go for ground 4 this time. Now this is a much bigger texture, so we're going to make the size a lot smaller. As you can see, it's still very big, but we'll fix that after we finish painting in these gaps. Double click it and we change the size. So there we go. 3 blends it in nicely. And now we're going to add some trees. Now there's many ways you can add trees. You could either open up, drag and drop them in, like so, or you could use the tree tool, which is in place trees, which is that tool right next to the paint tool and the paint detail tool. Then we're going to click edit, add tree. And you're going to type tree, and since it's an autumn theme, we're going to get autumn trees. So you don't want these trees here. You want these ones here. That look very nice. We're going to go tree 9 to start with. Bring down the brush size to 1. So now every click we do, it will place a tree. You can place one there, place one there, you can place one there. Now these are the default sizes of the trees. You can change the tree height and width in the settings there. Okay, now we want to probably get a different kind of tree. So we're going to go to there, type tree. Tree 10. Going to place one there and one there. Now I know your environment's not going to look exactly like this, but from this lesson you hopefully will learn a few things about designing a level. Now we want a smaller tree. And I think that one might work. I will try and get a small low tree now. So maybe tree 18. Not the right colour. Let's go. This is okay, but if we change the tree height to 50 and the tree width to 50, it'll be a lot smaller and lower. Like that. And now we want to add some more grass in. So we go edit, add grass texture, type grass, and now we've got a better variety of what grass we can use now. So let's go for grass 3. Remember to change the colour. Now this is going to be a lot more grass, so we're going to change the brush size to 7. And you can go for the super big brush. We're going to just paint some grass, dabs of areas. Then we're going to add another grass. Let's go for this one. Select it. Now, since we can't really put a big brush there, we're going to bring this down to a 2 size brush and then paint little details in front. Now, these detailed meshes do move with a wind thing that's built in, which is located in the terrain settings, which is wind settings. And we want to bring these down a lot, because we don't want these moving around so quickly. Now we'll add some vegetation on the other side. First we're going to paint our 1 brush size. Now we're going to get a second texture and paint in between. try and use as many textures on the terrain as you can to bring out the quality of your level. If you simplify it with a few textures, like 2 basic textures, the terrain will look very, very bland. Okay, that will do. Okay, now we're going to place our trees. First we're going to start with Control Z those, because we've got to put the tree height and width back up to 100. Place 3 of those. Place 2 of those. Four of those. Now this is where we put it back to 50. Oh, sorry, type wrong. There we go. Having a moment. As you can see, there's a big area there, so we're going to put another tree in there. I have to switch through these quickly, so if you type in, you just click tab to go through them a lot quicker. Okay, now we've got some trees. We're going to put some more grass down on that side. I'm going to go back to a 7 brush. Put some grass down. Ooh, too much there. Take away some. Like that. Now we're going to put some of this out. Mix up the veg a bit. Now remember to change to a 2 brush to paint near the front, because we don't want to get any of this on to the path. Now we have some nature within our level. Now these trees were created in a tree creator, which means they can react to wind. So if you go to game object, other, and create a wind zone, this will create a wind zone for the trees. Now it defaultly puts it into a corner, so if you drag it into the scene, sorry, you can lift it up. Doesn't matter where it is, but the rotation, as you can see, will change the wind direction and the angle. So we want the wind to be coming around about this direction and pointing down. Now, to adjust the wind settings, you simply make sure that that maximize thing is off, hit the play button, and as you can see they move quite nicely, but you can adjust the settings. You can adjust the wind main. You want the wind main to be up to about 1 anyway, which is default. Wind turbulence to about 0.5, and then these will adjust the angle. Now obviously if you were in a storm, that would be kind of the pressure you want, but you don't want that, so we're going to have it at 1 and 0.03, which will have a nice movement. Now before you have the settings, don't click the unplay button, right click on that and copy component, because in play mode when you make changes and unclick play, it resets it back to what it originally was before you hit play. So now you can right click, paste component values, and there's all the values you just set. So now hitting play, you can see you got some grass movement, you got tree movement, which creates a nice environmental feel. Now later you can add particle effects, but for this tutorial I'm going to put a few particle effects in now. So if you go to particle within the folder, and you can see you've got some particles here. You've got sparks, you've got water, you've got leaves, and you can see fog. Lift it up, has a nice little fog effect. Well, we're not going to use that, we're going to use the leaves, which are falling leaves, which is what we want. So we put this above, make sure it's above the tree, so the spawner is above the trees. And we can duplicate that. Actually, I will use leaf particle 2. So we have a mixture of yellow and red leaves. Now if we click play, and zoom down here, again we'll have some nice leaf particle effects falling from the trees while the trees are moving. We got grass moving, which is really good. That's what we want. So in this tutorial we have made the barrier area for our player. We've added some detail textures. We've added a fountain with the park fences. We've added some benches. We've added some trash cans, and we've done a little bit of vegetation. Now just imagine this entire area with this kind of vegetation will look very, very nice. Thank you for watching this tutorial.